Welcome to First Steps videos 8 and 9. I'm going to intro both these last two videos in one step. Basically, the video 8 and 9 are going to be a two-parter to show you the completion of our article submission robot. Now, as you've probably already heard in previous videos, we had a change of sites in the video. It's not a really big issue. What we're doing really does stay the same. We're using the same sort of logic, same sort of feel. And even though the site changes, we have to change what we're selecting to fill in, but the concepts really don't change. So it doesn't matter really where you're going to be going to to do your article directories. It's all the same at the end of the day. Okay, so what we've already covered the automated account creation, which included creating an account with a website, confirming an email, automating content syndication, which is spinning the content, posting content, and confirming content, which we'll be doing in this video here. Okay, the submission of the site is going to incorporate a number of logical steps. One of them is building the necessary input fields. What do you need to input when you're inputting an article to an article directory? Discovering the logic to properly submit an article. We have to think about the flow of how things are occurring to minimize the code that we create. It's really easy when we're doing an article or any kind of robot to do automation on the web to build ourselves what I would call a bowl of spaghetti. Basically what occurs is our code kind of just gets jumbled and we're not really sure what we're doing and confused. At the end of the day, what's going to happen is you're going to get to know the site. You're going to throw away all what you did and start again because now you know what you need to do. It's actually better, and I'm going to show you my logical thinking in these last two videos on how to build a robot the first time and get what you want. You know, I'm going to be making changes on the fly as I'm going, and really you're going to see my whole thought process in these two videos. As well as you're going to have the bot watch the pages that come up while it's automating, while it's running. We have to make sure the bot knows that what it sees is what we want, where we want to be. So have the bot watch the pages that what comes up to make sure we are where we want to be. And you're going to see how just a subtle change in the execution can cause problems for us, and we have to watch out for that. Okay, and we're going to conclude by looking at some ideas to take from these lessons that we could take all of this to the next level. And beyond the first steps, there's going to be lots of different lessons to show you how to take what you've learned here to the next level. Right now, you do know probably about 60% of what you need to know using U-Bot. And the other 40%, about 30 of that is going to be learning new techniques, learning how to do things. And the last 10, which is the most important percentage, the most important out of the 100, that 10%, is building the experience that you're going to need to know what you need to do when you run into a problem. I will say this is an easy bot to create. It's not extremely complex. We didn't have to deal with lots of flash. We didn't have to deal with elements that change on us all the time, etc., etc., etc. And I've actually encountered all those things in more complex bots. But the First Step series is not designed to take you down the garden path and show you wonderful and bizarre things. It's to get your feet wet very quickly and to be able to play with the bot and get in there and get to learn the commands and know what you need to do. So without further ado, let's get started. Okay, let's continue on our first steps. As mentioned in the very first video in the series where we're doing the article directory, the first few videos were centered around creating an account, confirming the account with email, and doing all those things with another article directory. And as I did mention in the first video too, these article directories come and go, but the learning, what we're doing, the steps all stay the same. All article directories will have differences between them in terms of automation, but the steps you're going to follow to automate that site are pretty much identical. I've probably automated hundreds of article directories over the last couple of years, at one time or another, and I find that I still follow the same steps even in this tutorial series here. Okay, so we're going to continue on using articlerich.com is the site I've chosen now, because the other article directory is now out of service at this point in time. It could come back, it might not, it happens, but our bots will normally work either on a single directory if we choose to do that, or on multiple. So it depends on how we decide to build them, but we're going to continue this series with the article rich. Okay, so going forward, I know that because I did a little bit of pre-looking, and it's always important when you're building a robot to look at the site and ascertain what is actually happening. What do you got to do? What are you going to need? The three things I know I'm going to need is my username, my password, and the articles I'm going to submit. And I haven't put it in here. If you're going to be selling this robot, you might want to put in there in brackets Spintax format permitted, because what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to have the articles in a spinnable format, so I can insert them, and I'll pre-spin them before I put them in the article directory to make a little bit of uniqueness on every post. Okay, so excuse me. Going forward, we have just the setup of the user interface, the two login pieces, as well as the article to submit piece. And just as a reminder, I'll show you what Spintax looks like here. I just opened up the document we're going to be sending out today, and you can see it uses these curly brackets to open and close, and there's a pipe symbol or a vertical bar between the different sentences. So basically there's a single level of spinning occurring here. I could do a second level spinning if I wanted to. For this example, I'm going to do just a single level of spinning. So basically when I spin this, it's going to select randomly one of the first three sentences, and then between the 2 second brackets, between those 3 sentences, etc., etc., etc. The whole idea being we're going to end up with a fairly original article. Okay, so let's get cooking here. We want to submit articles, so we're going to click here. So we could do one of two things here. We could actually tell UBot to click on that. Okay, and we could do that. Let's see what happens. Okay, or the second thing we could do is we can find out what the link actually is. Now I know the site likes to change its link location for the login. So I'm going to actually, and this is something you'll learn too, what's going to happen is you're going to notice that sometimes the site, the actual URL is going to change here and there randomly. There's about 4 or 5 URLs. Some sites don't have that. Some sites it's always the same. For this particular example, I'm going to actually click on the element. Now, let me show you what could go wrong. What I'm going to do is I'm going to select the ID here, and I'm going to tell it to put in, what is the first variable? Email username. And I'm going to tell it to put in the password, and I know that one's just password. I'm going to say OK. I'm going to stop it right there. Let's see what happens now. And I like this site too because it's a little slow. If you ever want to learn how to code nicely, it's good to go with a site that's a little slow. Okay, so it looks like it actually worked for us. Sometimes a site though, if you do not, like once I click the button, it could try to fill these fields in automatically, and this page hasn't come up yet. So what we actually want to do is we want to make sure we wait in one of two ways here. We can do it just a straight wait. Wait for browser event. DOM ready. Now DOM means it's the whole site's been loaded. There's page loaded, everything loaded. Now they all kind of sound the same, and they're pretty close to the same. What I've been finding though, that a lot of websites have so much JavaScript on it that the site will load completely, and then the JavaScript will run right after the site is loaded, and then sometimes the JavaScript is composing the page after the site is, in quotes, loaded. So what happens is automation breaks. I found that this works good. If you find that you're doing a site, this is a really quick way to say, okay guy, click on the button and now wait. Just wait until I see forgot password comes up and continue on. Secondarily, what we could do too here is use an if statement that if that doesn't come up, let's just do this, if go under qualifier functions, and we're going to see if an element on the page exists, and we're going to click forgot password. If it exists, then we're okay, but if it doesn't exist, we're in trouble. I'm actually going to do this exactly the opposite, so I'm just going to get rid of this because I want to see if it doesn't exist. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to use the not. So if this forget password is not on the page, then I want this if statement to say it, then to trigger this here. What I'm going to say is I'm going to say alert, which is going to bring up a box for us. Okay, now we could say anything we want to. It doesn't really matter. The whole idea is, at this point, I'm just going to stop the script because we really can't go any further. Now, you can get rid of the else if you're not going to use it to tighten up your code. I've showed you that in the past. So if that doesn't come up, we can throw that in there. Now, what I prefer to do, other than doing the wait for the like a DOM ready, what I've been starting to do is I'll use the wait, and I'll wait for element. So first of all, I'm going to click on exactly the same element that I'm looking for because I know that should be there. Okay, so I'm going to get rid of this event here. I'm going to wait for this. What's going to happen is, by default, this is going to, I believe it's 30 seconds it will time out in. And we're waiting for that element to appear. Now, if it doesn't show up at 30 seconds, execution will continue anyhow, and this is why we need the if statement. So, if I haven't seen that, if that element that should exist does not, it's not there, then I need to throw an alert and stop the script. Now let's just try our robot and see how well it works. Okay, so there wasn't any problems, so that's good. Finally, the last thing we want to do, and I know you noticed that I waited to do it. I had to click the submit button. I'll normally wait until I know that this particular section is working, and I'll click the submit button. Now I'm going to select this and stick this in here. Okay, it's actually pulled it by name. Let's see what that means. If I click this here, the advanced element editor has changed since the last videos. We can now look into the actual structure of the page, and this I know is going to change a little bit in the near future again, so I'm not going to really go over this too much until this functionality has been settled and it's working good. But let's look at this particular button. Let's see where it got that. You see it's got the name B7. Okay, so that button is actually named right here. See that? Name B7, and that's really good. I think that's just fantastic. I can, if I find that it's not working, I've showed you in the past, I can actually tighten that up a little bit. I could say the inner HTML. Okay, it's not liking that, so I'm going to say outer HTML, sorry. And I can actually say the whole thing, look for that particular button complete. But you know, I'm going to try it just as UBot finds it. I normally will not go in and start fooling around with this until I know that UBot's not seeing it, or it's not being seen properly, or there's another element on the page that's coming up. Because automation works good, UBot works good, but sometimes there's little things on the page that could screw you up. So I'm going to say OK. Let's run this. Okay, so it's throwing a little bit of an error here. It's just off screen. It's saying that there's a bit of code that's coming on the page. It's not nice or whatever. There's something wrong, but that's okay. But what I'm looking at here is I actually want to see, again, I need to wait. I'm going to wait for an element, and I'm going to look for select a category. That looks good. Actually, I'm going to go further down the page. Sometimes a page takes a long time to load, so it's really good to like look for something that you might have further down the page. Keywords. Okay, you see how this is done it via an offset? What it's basically done is look through the table and it's seen that offset. Now, I actually don't like choosing the offset. What I'll normally do here is I'll look at this and I'll look for inner text. Keywords, exact match. I'm going to say OK. So that's what I'm looking for. And once again, what I'm going to do is I'm going to do an if statement. And this is a great way to ensure that you don't have a robot that gets lost, because websites do change on you. Okay, not, we're going to look for the exists. I'm going to select that as well. I'm going to edit it, and I am going to select inner text of keywords and say OK. So if that doesn't exist, it's going to come forth and say, again, there's a problem. I'm going to say I can't find article entry form, and that right now is for me. That way I know that things are not gone sideways. I'm going to get rid of that. Oh, actually, I'm going to leave that else in there for the moment. Okay, so let's say we've done that. Now let's just do something really quick here. What I'm going to do is I'm going to rerun the robot, because you got to think of these things, okay? I'm going to rerun the robot. See how it's waiting? Now what's different? We've already logged in. So what's happening is when we come back to the site, because we haven't logged out of the site, we've only logged into the site, the robot's seeing something that it's not expecting. So this element is now waiting to time out. I'm just going to wait for it to time out now. Take advantage of the fact and have a drink. Okay, so there, it came forth and said, we have a problem. I'm stopping the bot. So I say, okay, I know execution is stopped. So what we need to do is we need to put in a second level of verification to see if it doesn't see that we've already logged in. Okay? Okay, so I just thought about this for a second, and I think I know how I want to do this. I like to do things with minimum code. I really hate writing spaghetti code. I'll take a moment to think about a problem. Like for this particular example, I could put in here an AND statement underneath of the parameters. We have either, sorry, not AND. So if either condition is true, I could say if this one is not there or this one is not there, then stop the bot. But you know, I'm looking at this thinking, okay, what's the best way to do the flow here? And I think the best way is to leave things initially like this. Look to see if the password is there. If it's not there, then what we'll do is we're going to see if it hasn't already logged us in. And if it sees the element and then it's logged us in, it'll just continue flow. And if it doesn't, then what we will do is we'll have it then stop. So, and it'll actually remove this other statement as well. So we're going to tie a couple things together here. So I need this else back in here. What's the easiest way to put this in? I'm going to select else here. And you notice I can't really stick it in the bottom here. So I'll stick it just above the then, and what I'll do is I'll drag it above the then above the else, and then I've got my else back. So right now what's happening is it goes through and it didn't see the forgot password, which would be on the login page. So the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to grab this here, I'm going to copy this, and I'm going to stick this just above here. paste. And now we're going to see if the word keyword exists. In other words, are we already logged in, basically? So if that doesn't exist, then we know we're in trouble, and we can leave this as it is. We can say, could not find the article in entry form. What I'll actually do is I'll edit this here. Okay. And I'm going to leave it like that. Now, so that's going to catch the two different things that could happen. The first thing that could happen is if it doesn't find the information that's on the login page. If it doesn't find it, it's going to go into the then and say, well, I'm not able to find the keyword either. If it can't find that, then there's evidently a problem and we're just going to stop the robot. The other condition is it's actually going to find that information. So else is, okay, here it's not necessary. I just got to think about flow here. Just got to think about flow. I didn't pre-do these robots before the tutorial, so I want you to kind of see how I'm thinking things through as well. And I think that's going to be very good instruction for you as well. Okay, let me just think for a second here. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to submerge the actual login into the else statement here, because if it sees this statement, it's actually going to default down to the else section. Now, first of all, I want to clean up the then. Here I could actually insert if I wanted to for really tight flow, and then, but I don't like nesting commands too deep because it gets confusing, like where does my if statement start in here and where does it end, or where's my then here from the before start, where does it end? So for just ease of reading it in the future, what I'm going to do is if it gets through the first then and it doesn't see this, and there's a problem if it doesn't see the keywords either, it's just going to stop. I'm going to get rid of this here, I'm going to get rid of this here, and I'm actually going to delete the else here as well, just to reduce the amount of what's in there. So basically, if it finds it, it's going to just basically continue the flow of the program. So what's basically happening here is if it doesn't find the forgotten password, and it doesn't find the statements here, then it's going to hit here, it's going to stop. But if it does here on the second level find the keywords, then we know it's there. We're ready to put the article in. Okay? So that's actually going to solve two problems for us. Instead of having this statement here, down here, we've got it up here. Okay? But now we still have to deal with the logging in. In the first level of if statement, we have the if the forgot password doesn't exist, then do this. But on the else, we know it does exist. So what we can do is we can drag in the actual login information. Okay, just like that. So what we've done now is we've just done a double check here. We've said, okay, log in, and we just do a final check at the end here to see if we're still not seeing, or if we're seeing the actual script. I'm just going to quickly save this. Okay, now we're going to run our script. Okay, I'm just going to ignore that. It's sort of the beep, beep, beep. Okay, so we know everything's good. It didn't stop, it didn't throw any errors. We know that it's showing the actual entry here. Now, the next thing I'm going to do is I'm actually going to fill in the fields here. I could fill these in a number of different ways. What I'm going to do, just for the sake of ease, because this is really first steps, I know this is going to be an article on home, let's say home accessories. Okay. Okay, so when I was about to do the next section here, I did encounter a bit of an issue. When I tried to drag this across, it wasn't actually picking up the box. Now sometimes that does happen. Sometimes the page takes a long time to kind of finish, complete, load, whatever. That's fine. What we're going to do here is I'm going to show you here. I want to change this to home accessories. I'm going to change it back to the default here. What I can do is I can drag this and drop this. Now if it's being antsy and it doesn't want you to select it, that command also sits underneath of the browser functions here, underneath commands, or sorry, browser commands, and I can say change drop down, and I can select it, drop it in here, select the double arrows here, and actually click on it and select it. Now I have a few choices I can do here. One of them is if I'm just putting in articles kind of randomly, and I don't really care where the articles get posted. In a lot of cases when you're doing automated article submission, you don't care. You can choose skip first choice, you can do random, or you can actually select the actual one you want it to be in. So in this case here, I'm actually going to select, because I know what's going to go, is home accessories. I'm going to say OK. Okay, so that's in there. And I'm just going to right click on it and make sure it runs. Sometimes these do not run and you have to find a different way. In this case it runs. The article title, I am going to, this is another field I could put up here, but I'm going to be lazy. Just going to put the title in here. Again, I can just run the node to see if it works. Sorry, I got to say OK first. Okay, it's working good. Article summary. What I'll normally do is I'll actually put in here into the boxes an article summary. Okay, and let me just grab this whole article. And now you can't, I'll tell you something, you can't grab the article in Word. Sorry, it's just off screen, I know. What you have to do is you have to go to the likes of Notepad. Okay, let me just bring this on screen. And I've copied, I'm going to paste it into Notepad. The reason why is Word can put in invisible characters, which will really mess things up for you. So this just ensures. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to grab the first paragraph here and put this into the article summary. Paste. Actually, while I'm at it, I'm going to grab the whole article. Paste it into the article to submit. Ah, goodness, I hate when it does that. What it did is it stuck everything into the first one, I believe. Sorry, my cut and paste functionality is not working as it should. Great. Make sure we didn't paste it all. We did paste it all into here. Okay. So I'm going to say select all. I'm going to get rid of that. Cut. I'm going to go back to the article here, make sure I just grab the first paragraph. Oops. Stick that in there. Perfect. So you see it's a lot shorter version there.